Hey, what's up guys, and welcome into the video where I'm going to be reviewing this Outex underwater camera housing for awesome landscape underwater photography, and maybe why you shouldn't invest in some of the cheaper versions of an underwater housing and go for the Outex coming up. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome into the channel where we talk about landscape photography and basically different ways you can become a better photographer. So if you do want to become a better photographer, consider subscribing to this channel. Now, in this video specifically, I'm going to be reviewing a Outex camera housing that I've been using for the past 6 months. I use it all throughout summer. I really enjoyed trying to create more dynamic landscape photography with some underwater elements connected to it. And one of the ways that I did this was I actually used it a lot when I went on vacation in Florida. And first I want to talk about some of the other camera housings that you can invest in, some of the cheaper ones. This is a newer camera housing and it does a pretty good job. It's for the Sony A6000 and it's built for that camera, and it's also built for the kit lens that comes with the Sony A6000. So it's a 16-50 lens. So when you get this camera housing, you can only use that camera and that lens with this camera housing. So I'll open it up so you can see inside. I've used this before. It does a really great job of keeping the camera dry. The problem comes in is with the price point on one of these, say $300, something like that, is when you invest in something like this, every time you want to upgrade your camera or use a different lens, you have to buy a whole new camera housing. And when you buy more expensive ones, you're spending $1,000. You're spending almost as much as you would maybe on a new camera or on a new lens. So it's something to consider with these. They produce good images, they're easy to use, but the investment part of it, you should really think about something like this, the Outex system. So with the Outex system, you basically get a silicone camera housing, and then you get the lens covers, the rings that go around the silicone housing, and also on the back you get a ring that goes around this. Now, it may not look as high-tech as, say, this one does, but it actually does a much better job as some of these do. And that goes to the really good glass that's on the front that connects to the lens itself. And this is a mirrorless housing, or it can be used for smaller DSLR cameras too. But it does just a really good job of sealing out that water with the O-rings on the front, with the metal attachments that screw directly onto your lens mount. And then also on the back has the same system, so you can look through and see to the back of your camera and what's on the LCD screen. The reason why I love this so much is that with a silicone cover, if you do upgrade to a different camera, you can just stick it in the same silicone cover that you already have. Let's say you want to use zoom lens. Well, all you would have to do for that is get a different ring mount to put on the front, which is going to save you a lot of money in the long run because you're only purchasing a size of a ring mount, not the entire underwater system. So going with something like this is going to save you a lot of money in the long run if you're doing a lot with underwater photography, or if you're interested in playing around with that and seeing what you can do. Some of those half underwater, half overwater shots, those really creative photographs that you can get playing around with the landscape. I mentioned I did this in Florida going on vacation and using this when we were out on a boat, really trying to get that half underwater, half overwater shot. Super easy to use. I can see through the glass on the back and also easily get clear images with the glass on the front. Let's talk about putting this together. Now, it's really important that you seal out the water, obviously. So you have the silicone cover for your entire camera here, but what you do is you connect it just over the lens connection that screws onto the actual lens. Now, you don't want to do this too tight just because you don't want to rip out the rings on your lens. You want to get this nice and tight, but not so tight that you can't get it off or you strip those ring mounts. So you want to have that tight. Then you put the O-ring on, which seals the silicone cover to that lens mount. And then lastly, you have the last little screw-on piece that connects and tightens this part to the O-ring and tightens the silicone to the lens mount itself. And then on the back it's the same system. You also have a pretty cool attachment in here that separates this back part of the Outex gear from the actual camera so that it doesn't see that something's close to the camera and switch the LCD screen off. If you're using that, you can also go into the camera menu and select to only see through your LCD screen. But again, tools are really important for photography. You know, the camera's the tool, the lens is a tool. This is just another tool you can use for outdoor photography, for landscape photography, to get those intimate details on the sea floor or get rocks on a river floor. This is also a good way that you can get those half underwater, half overwater shots with the gear that you're using. Honestly, I've used housings like this before, but I've never used one so versatile as this. One of the other things that I loved about it is how easy it was to access all of your camera dials. So even if I switch this on and off, the silicone is so maneuverable that I can access all of my dials. I can spin them because silicone grips well to whatever your camera is made of, whether that's plastic, whether you have a weather sealed camera, a metal camera. Everything is so easy to change out, and then you just look through the ring mount that's on the back to your LCD screen and you can see everything going on the camera. Again, really easy to use, really fun to use, and again, really fast to set up. It's not difficult to put this together. I would recommend though to be sure that you have a nice seal around the camera, that you actually test this out in a sink and a bathtub and put it together first before you take it out for the first time, so you can be used to that whenever you get out in the field, and be sure that you have this sealed up nicely so that when you do dunk it underwater, you're not letting water into the camera housing itself. So that's a word to the wise here, learned from experience, not with this one, but with other housings like this. That has happened before. Also, for the investment on this, I have the entry-level kit with a 67mm ring mount, and something like that costs around $350. Some of the higher end ones with a dome on it, you know, you're getting up into $500. But if you get one of these and you have to upgrade it later, you've already spent well over $700 on something like that. So the investment on this is well worth over something like this that's built for any specific camera or specific lens. So if you are interested in the Outex camera housings, they do make other covers that make the underwater, overwater shots a little bit more easy. They make dome covers that put space in between a wide angle lens and the lens ring mount here. So it is optionable where you can go on Outex and find these different things. This video is not sponsored by Outex. I just really love this product. If you want to check them out more, I have a link below in the video description that you guys can check out, and also in the comment section for you guys to check out. If you want to up your game with some underwater photography, I highly recommend it. Really fun to break you out of any photography slumps that you may be in. Check out the Outex system because you're not going to be disappointed.